Hi. I'm actually really excited to be here. Thank you. I'm actually not a senior game designer. I'm the creative director of the cycle, but I haven't updated my LinkedIn profile in a couple of years, so I think that's where that came from. So I'm going to be talking about balancing the choice of PVE and PVP in our game, the cycle. The cycle is a game in development at Yager Development. Yager, known for Spec Ops and Dreadnought, and this is the game we're making now. I had a video, I had like a 20-second video, but I must have messed up somehow, so I can't play it. So I'm going to have to explain the game instead. Yeah, this is the video that doesn't work. And that I apparently can't skip. Can we skip? Here we go. So instead of doing videos, we do stick figures. So what is our game? Our game is a 20-player multiplayer session where you compete to complete the most contracts. So you survive and you complete contracts, and if you do, you can win the match. This takes about 20 minutes if you survive, and if you don't, it can take less. These contracts, they vary in shapes and forms. Some are very PvE-centric, and some are more PvP-centric. So if you don't know anything about the game, I hope that gives a brief glimpse of what it is. It is in first person as well. We'll talk more about it. Click. We call our game a competitive quest shooter. And honestly, the only reason we call it a competitive quest shooter is because we had to make something up. There was no genre that really fit what we were trying to do, so we had to make something up. For a while, we were talking about PVE as a term for it, like get that in there somewhere. But we couldn't say the words, so we had to go with something else. We chose the words for a reason, though. So we chose the word competitive because we wanted to make sure that people understood that this is a PvP multiplayer game. The word quest, we chose to try to make you understand that it's a PvE game as well, where there are other things to do. And the word shooter we picked because there's a lot of shooting in it. It is a first-person shooter as well. But I think more interesting than that is the question, why did we want to do this? And why we wanted to do this was, we set out to create something that comes next. We didn't want to be making the game that other people are making, so we looked at what do we think can come after, sort of after the Battle Royale games. We wanted to make a game that was full of player choice, that was centered on player choice. Because we believe that drama and stories to tell come from that choice. Having that choice to play differently in different sessions creates different stories for each session that you have. And choices are what I'm going to talk about today. So I'm going to try to talk a bit about the choices that we wanted to create and how we worked with them. At sort of the core of these choices, what we wanted to make sure that could happen, a key moment in our game that we wanted to have happen, was seeing this other player, seeing that player and not just shooting them. So you see them and you think, and you figure out, what do I want to do here? And you think about, what might that dude want to do to me? So instead of just seeing someone and shooting, you see someone and you make decisions. So we have this sort of like aiming down the barrel of the gun, looking at each other and trying to figure out what to do. From there, we want to be able to go to this moment where they start a fight. That should be completely legit. That's a viable choice. That's an action we want in our game. We also want them to be able to go their separate ways. So two guys seeing each other, looking at each other, and then going, ah, it's fine, you go over there, I go over here, but now I know there are other players around here. Or we wanted them to be able to team up and actually play together. So this meant that we had to create these choices. And by creating these choices of PvP or PvE, solo or co-op, because we didn't want to make it easy for ourselves, we wanted to create real choices. And by real choices, we mean choices where if you make this choice, there's part of the game there for you. There's stuff for you to play. Each of these choices, each of these quadrants should be a viable way of playing the game. So they should be filled with stuff. Stuff that is the game, stuff that allows you to play and compete. In one match, one place, all of this. And often several times a match, because whenever you see a new person, you might make a new decision. So for this first choice of PvP or PvE, so I want to talk a bit about the things that we have to sort of make these choices, the things we needed to have in the game. The simplest, most straightforward thing we had to have in the game, we had to have monsters. We had to have AI enemies, because if we didn't have PvE combat, there's really not much of a choice. It's a non-choice. You would just end up playing PvP. So we have monsters in the game. Not quite as scary as these, but the second thing we need contracts. Contracts are what we call quests in the game. So we need these because we also need other ways of scoring. We need to measure, like, how well are you doing? What are you doing? In ways that aren't PvP combat. And we needed risk. In order to make this choice of playing PvP or not, of engaging in that combat, we had to be able to say, what are you risking? What's the cost of this? And I'm sure there are a lot of ways we could have gone with this, like other ways of imposing that risk or that cost. We chose to say, if you die in PvP, you're out of the match. For the other choice, that is solo or co-op, we had to make sure that you could actually play co-op. So we had to add sort of the co-op mechanics to it. We have a feature in the game that we call pacts, where if you see someone else and they're playing alone and you're playing alone, you, at the press of a key, you invite them to play with you in a pact. And now you're a team and you're helping each other out, you see each other, there's no friendly fire anymore. But that meant we also had to figure out resource sharing, resource and scoring. So how do you score if you're playing in a pact? How do you score if you're playing alone? How do we make sure that this is not a situation where it becomes a non-choice again, where it is so more beneficent to play in a pact that you would never ever play solo? So if we look at this list, this is sort of the bare bones stuff that we had to put in the game, make sure existed in the game for us to make these choices actually viable. What we find very quickly is that these things are contradictory. They're intertwined, they're contradictory, and the one messes with the other. Monsters or AI, for example, have to be tuned in a way in the session where if you're playing alone, you can deal with it, but when you're playing together with someone else, it's not way too easy. If we make them way too dangerous, all of a sudden it makes complete sense to play in a pact, but we made that choice of playing solo into a sort of a non-choice, an empty space in this matrix that we're trying to create. Same is true for PvP. PvP for us was very, very difficult because we were saying that 2 versus 1 is a completely legitimate situation. It's 3 people playing the game, deciding to play PvP. One of those 3 people decided to go it alone, whereas the other 2 didn't. So what does that do to time to kill, for example? Our time to kill in development has been a bit like this, a bit up and down, trying to figure out where this needs to be to make these choices viable. And this list sort of goes on and on, right? Like that's how the scoring together with others, how do we split those scores? How do we make sure that this works and that works? Playing alone, playing solo, engaging in PvP, or engaging mostly in PvE. So what we found over the year that we've been in development, a little bit more than a year, is that we end up with unintentional changes. I call them accidental non-choices. And accidental non-choices, I mean that we sort of messed up and we actually made sure that one of these choices all of a sudden was not viable anymore. And over the course of the year, this has happened mostly in 2 forms. This is what happens. Sort of one of these just goes sort of blank. There's nothing there. There's no reason. So what we have is sometimes we have instant change in behavior when we play test. And we see that we did something and we changed something and now people play like this. And it can happen really quickly. And when it does, it's actually pretty straightforward. We imagine what is going to happen when we change things, and we see what happens when we change the game, and then we react and we accordingly. The other one is trickier because it's the gradual changes in player behavior, and this I'm talking internally. When this happens, it becomes really, really difficult to see. So we do daily playtests. We have since as soon as we could play the game. Essentially, as soon as we could run around and shoot at each other, we started playing together. And this, I think, has helped us a lot. And daily playtests are great for the first of this. The things where we knew what we were doing, where we have like instant change in behavior and the choices that we make in the team, because something happened. We tuned the scoring, we tuned the resource sharing and the pacts, And it's very, very straightforward. We see that, and people make choices accordingly very quick. Daily playtests make it really, really hard to see the second. When we've done something that creates a gradual shift, that before it becomes measurable for us, it becomes very, very hard to understand and see. And the third thing about daily playtests is that they're not really real. The environment that we're playing in is actually not the real environment. We were super worried about betrayals. We were super worried about people betraying each other when they were in pacts, because we did all the time. Like, we were min-maxing this. We were saying, I'm going to break this pact right here, and then I'm going to steal your thing, and I'm going to run away over here. And it was like a big concern. And then we played it with real players, and they didn't. Like, just didn't happen in that way. People didn't play it that way in that environment. They killed each other much more than we did, because we apparently didn't want to kill each other. So it's not actually really real. And this leads me to DBNO. So I'm going to run you through something that we did and sort of try to get an understanding of where you can easily go wrong. Down but not out is a feature that exists in a lot of games. You get shot and your health goes down to 0, and you have a chance to be revived or another chance to sort of get up and get back in the fight. And we wanted to add this feature to our game. And we wanted to add it to strengthen this part. A lot because we actually thought that this was problematic. We thought that it was problematic that people were betraying each other too much. Because, again, we did internally. What we actually ended up doing was strengthening this part. And I'll sort of try to get to how that happened. Just first a brief sort of history of how do you die in the cycle. You get shot, you get down into a shield. Once you die in that shield, you turn into some sort of foam dude. When you're foam dude, you're dead. So, DBNO, iteration 1. Very straightforward. You bleed out. You can be revived by your buddy, but if no one revives you, you die. And we thought this was going to be a slam dunk. We thought it was going to be a very easy feature to add to the game. It turned out there was really not much reason to revive each other. Because remember, our pacts aren't, like, we're not a real team. We're a team for a while, and you can break that pact. I still score, and you still score, so we scored separately. And what happened was that people were actually just given a really, really good out in terms of getting rid of a pact mate. So if they were down, you just have to wait, and then they're dead. And since they're the competition, that was actually a pretty good thing. So we playtest, and we iterate, and we work fast as often as we can, and we go to iteration 2. So we change it. And we say, there's a timer to revive, not to bleed out. So you revive by yourself, and that should work. We also added an execution by interaction, where the guy would have to go up, and he would sort of do this blibbity bloop thing, and the guy would die. And that was horrible. Like, it was really bad. Like, no one liked it. Like, first day we played it, we were all like, no, I can't keep this. So we got rid of it. And we got rid of it very quickly, and we said, okay, it's fine. You shoot the guy, and then he dies, and everything still stayed the same. But it turned out that it still felt really bad. It felt bad because as the guy that was in this DBNO state, you had no actions. You couldn't do anything. There was no recourse. You felt like you were just going to die anyway, because of course he'll keep shooting me till I'm dead, and it felt really bad. And this felt really bad, and I remember we were sitting in a room, we were talking about this thing, what do we do? How do we fix this? How do we solve this? And someone says, we add a teleport. So we do. And there are a lot of reasons why we shouldn't have added a teleport. Like, there's a multitude of reasons. We were sort of trying to fix something by adding more complexity and more things that were more difficult to explain and understand, but we did it anyway. So we prototyped it, and we got it in, and it worked. It worked. Great, he teleports away. That's much, much better. And we're super happy. We're sort of patting ourselves on the back. We broke all the rules, like our design rules, like how do we do these things, but we made it better. We made it better, and it felt way better to be the guy who got shot, and it felt way better to be the guy who did the shooting, because now the guy was at least out of there. This guy was over where he started from. Everyone's happy. And we played the game, and we played the game for quite a while. Longer than I would like to actually admit. We have this in the game. We have it in the game, and it takes us a long time before we realize, Oh, can I go back on this? Well, apparently I can't go back on this. I don't know how to. What we realized is that we took away the risk. We had inadvertently taken away the risk that exists for PvP. And this happened very, very gradually. In our internal playtest, people didn't like straight away start just going gung-ho, but it happened a bit more, and a bit more, and a bit more, until we were in a place where PvP or PvE was not really a question. It was a non-question because the guys in the room that were playing, they would just say like, PvP, yeah, why not? Like, I'll just jump into this fight, I'll shoot this guy, and if I die, I'm back in the fight. So we iterated again, and we said you get one of these. And this is still problematic for the same reasons that we have, but it's still much better than where we started from. So where did we go wrong? How did we end up taking a feature that should have been just actually, honestly, a slam dunk? It should have been super easy and sort of mess up. Well, one thing was that we tried strengthening the wrong thing. Remember I said that the daily playtest, that is not really real. That environment is not actually how the game plays. We thought it was a bigger issue than it was. The second thing we did was that we sort of lost track of what we were trying to do. In our daily playtest, playing very fast and iterating, we focused too much on that fast iterative loop. So instead of looking at, should we have been doing this, what are we strengthening, we started looking at how does this feel, and not from a perspective that was playing co-op or playing PvE, but from a, what's it feel like to get shot? And then we added these sort of the execution thing, and our reactions were always centered around, like, how does it feel right now? How does the game differ today from yesterday? And we also underestimated the effect, the impact that this feature had on the game as a whole. A lot of times, what we see when I had this list of things, the sort of the bare bones things that make up these choices, it's easy to underestimate which thing is actually going to make the game swing drastically. So sort of what we learned from this, what we sort of want to take away is that we realized that it's very tempting to think that the most recent change that we made to the game is the thing that is responsible for the most recent change in how it's played. And we've seen that that's not true. More often than not, sort of when we've created these accidental non-choices, and again, this is for the first year of development without actually having the game running as a service yet, we have found that these often come from older changes or older additions. A lot of times when we were sort of stumped, when we didn't quite know why we started behaving different ways, we wanted to look at it, what did we do? What did we do yesterday? What did we change last week? But those weren't the things that actually caused the change. Because these things had to change gradually, they had to sort of seep into our playtesting for it to actually change how we played. As an aside, we also learned that game devs are really, really devious, apparently, and players are much more murderous than we are. And where are we now, then? Where do we sort of take this from now? How do we deal with this? We've learned, I think, or for us at least, we've figured out that a lot of times we've been looking too closely on this fast iterative loop. Where we are now is that we're still playtesting daily because we absolutely have to. It's vital. It gives us so many benefits. Even looking at DB&O and how it changed and what we did to it, a lot of the changes that we did made the game better, made the feature better. But when we realized that we sort of created a non-choice, we are becoming better at evaluating earlier changes, not only what we're currently working on. And ways of doing this part, what we also want to do is we constantly want to evaluate sort of the viability of these choices I talked about before. And there are ways of doing this internally that work for us. Some of them are making sure that you know which players are the fastest at sort of latching on to these changes and how the game actually behaves. And also sometimes to have certain people take a step back from the daily playtesting and come back a little bit later and see what has changed in their absence. At its core, what we want to create is we want to create a game where this guy, the only fancy guy in my presentation, can make any of these choices, where all of these are actually viable, real expressions of the game. And we found that that's very difficult, that it's quite complicated, and we mess up every now and again, but we're trying to become better at it. And that's my talk. That's me. I don't think I have any more slides. If I press the thing again, it probably just goes black. I have no idea how long that took, but that's me. Do you have time for questions, or do you have questions?
Thanks. That was fast. Really appreciate it. Thanks a lot for the great talk. So actually, there's time for one question, I would say. Is there any questions within the audience? Raise your hand. Don't be shy. Yeah, there's one.
Hi there, thanks for the talk. So what is the current status of the teleport right now? What is in the current iteration then that you have?
Of the DBNO feature? Yeah. It is actually pretty much what it is. You have one teleport and you sort of teleport back. And I mean, that's part of why I think this is a good example of making games, is we messed up a lot of times along the way, but we also found some really good things. And keeping this teleport, keeping that feature, actually made the game better. But yeah, there's still some issues of, is this too complicated? Are these things that, are there too many rules in that area of the game, and should we perhaps get rid of some of them? But the current state is that you have one teleport.